Okay, so physically next to the stomach, it's a bag that a lot of chemistry goes on. We talk about after lunch. Okay, food normally stays in there about 2-4 hours, something like that, before it empties, and it goes past another sphincter. Sphincter. Okay. The little valve that lets the food out of the stomach and into the small intestine, or actually the first part of the small intestine, which is called the duodenum.
I'm sorry, what did you call that other sphincter? The one?
It's usually the duodenum.
Yeah,
sphincter. Yeah. Sometimes you'll see it written sometimes as stomach sphincter or whatever. I think the most confusing one is the one that's called the cardiac, because as soon as you hear the word cardiac, you think heart.
Yeah, I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, but it's actually, that's the stuff. Well, you can imagine, if that little valve's jammed open, and again, you're looking at primary stress, just stress levels here, jammed open or jammed closed, it's going to disrupt the rhythm, because the whole thing about the digestive system is it has a rhythm, and it's called peristalsis. Because what you've actually got is, you've actually got skin on the inside. Okay? The skin is not just the outer organ. I go in there, that's just skin, but on the inside as well. The skin is the biggest organ in the body, right? It's one of the classic A&P questions. What is the skin, a tissue or an organ?
It's an organ.
And everyone puts tissue and you think, no, it's an organ. But it's like you can imagine that all this digestive system is actually the skin inside. It's the boundary, it's the barrier between what is you and what is not you. It's probably one of your primary boundaries. It's not an interpersonal boundary, it's between you and the outside world. But it's also awfully muscular. And it's that rhythm that's called peristalsis, of getting food to where it needs to go. And it needs to be that sort of rhythm. Okay? Now, it's like with anything rhythmical. If somebody's under stress, that rhythm's going to stop. Or it's going to start going out of sync. Okay? And so a lot of this, if as the food moves down, things start going out of sync, that's when you're going to get things like, indigestion, don't feel right. Things happening or feeling not right. So just on a general day-to-day, if it gets out of sync. And the movement out of the stomach, the valve opens, and what's called the chyme, which is what the acidic stuff is called when it's in the stomach, is called chyme. CHYME. So this is your food, having passed its second stage of chemistry messing around with, which we'll talk about the chemistry after lunch. It's called chyme, and it's released into the duodenum. Now this is where it gets really interesting, because you've basically got liver, gallbladder and pancreas now coming into play. All right, up to now it's just been food down into the stomach, into the duodenum, and now you're getting the next layer of chemistry coming into play. And also you're getting the next layer of problems coming into play. I mean, most people are aware of problems that happen with the gallbladder. If for some reason that's not working properly.
Someone I know's just had those out.
Yeah. I mean, gallstones, which are deposits, calcium deposits, or other sorts of deposits, they can be very pretty. I don't think I've ever seen any. Seriously pretty colour.
Crystals and things.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. But don't really help matters much. If they happen to have been collected in the gallbladder and creating the gallbladder, and then they're blocking these little ducts as they empty into the duodenum. because when it comes to digesting the specific foods, the bile that comes via the gallbladder, liver, you need to digest those foods. And if there's little stones sat there blocking it, it's not going to help.
Does that those little dotted lines, does that mean that is a full pipe? It doesn't go...
No,
sorry.
Yeah, they deposit in to it's actually called the duct of Oddi. I would remember it because I think of Bill Oddie and the birds. Actually comes in, it joins the duct from pancreas. They all empty their little enzymes and...
Oh, that comes
into
in
one
so
tube.
Right.
It all comes into the duodenum.
Right.
So this is when the chemistry starts to getting really interesting, is when this lot starts piling bits in. But you've got the gallbladder basically, which helps to digest the fats. We'll talk about those this afternoon. And of course, what goes wrong with that? Yes, it gets chopped up for various reasons. Sometimes it's a DNA thing. You know, they used to say fair fat and over 40 was a prime thing for getting gallstones. Infertile, that's right, it was all the filth. Okay. Fair fat, fertile and over 40.
Fair? What do you mean by fair?
Fairer than me, fair head.
Fair hair, fair skin.
Yeah, fair
Oh,
head.
if you were that type of person. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
fair hair, fair skin, because it's a DNA thing.
Right.
You know, and there are some who's like my mum, for example, fell well into that category. You know, sort of fair fat, fertile and over 40, and yes, gallbladder removed. You know, I mean, nowadays they can actually disrupt stones sonically, and of course the latest thing that they tend to do is, whereas when my mum had hers done, they cut open and get at the gallbladder from that. Now they do keyhole through. You know, which has its own issues, and pull the gallbladder out. But the thing is, it's another one of those, it doesn't actually solve the problem.
No, my dad's had his gallbladder removed, and what happens now instead, he gets what they call gravel.
Yeah.
So it still happens.
It still happens.
It still happens. Nobody tells you that when you have the operation. It doesn't solve it.
It doesn't solve the problem,
No.
Or it solves the pain, because the pain from gallstones is meant to be the worst.
Yeah, and you get the third pain up in your shoulders.
And it comes all over the place.
Yeah.
In fact, it's one of the most common mistakens for a heart attack, because the pain deflects up into the shoulders and the arms.
Gosh.
But it can be incredible. But people get a lot of warning, but quite often they won't heed the
Well,
warnings.
it's because people don't listen to their bodies.
No. There are gallbladder flushes available when the stones are still very small, and actually that's worth doing if you happen to know there are stones there and they're quite small. I mean, it's apple juice for a few days, which of course apple juice softens things up. Then it's an Epsom salts last thing at night, lie on one side and then poo the lot out the next morning. It works. But it's no good if you've got big gallstones.
I can't cope with the Epsom salts.
Yeah. But it does work. But then that's the primary, one of the mechanical things about the gallbladder. But yes, they will take gallbladders out, drop of the hat. Yeah. Liver, wow, what doesn't the liver do?
I can never understand why people eat it.
Well, they eat it because it's primary source of not protein, minerals. It's not the protein, it's the minerals that are the key. Very, very high minerals. I think it's the most blood heavy. I mean, even though the spleen, which is part here, stores blood, the liver is one of the most vascular, it's most highly blood supplied areas of the body. It's the second brain, it's the body brain in some respects. You know, so it's like it does some seriously important stuff. Regulates just about everything. And even things that people don't realise it regulates. Which is why when people have problems with their livers, why it can be so devastating. But having said that, the liver will repair itself in about 4 weeks, given a chance. And of course, if the liver can repair itself in 4 weeks, then that would suggest that anything else in the rest of the body can repair itself in 4 weeks, given half a chance.
And is it right that every 7 years, every cell in your body has replaced itself.
Oh,
So
yeah.
in theory,
Oh yeah,
you can replace new and therefore you can become healthy again.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is, I mean, it gives you some idea of the capacity of the body to heal. If the liver can sort itself out in 28 days, you know, and it does what it does, which is absolutely deals with most things.
Does that mean, when you say sort itself out in 28 days, does that mean it sort of regenerates or renews
It
itself?
can renew itself. But of course, the trouble is, this is when you have when people don't have subtle understanding. You see, if you've got an etheric body that's got the pattern in the etheric body that this is a poorly liver, the liver replaces itself from the pattern from the etheric body. So if the etheric body's pattern is up the creek, then the liver's just going to use that as a blueprint for how it replaces itself. So if there's problems in something like this, you know, where you've got an organ that's very, very good at replacing itself, you have to make sure that stress is moved from the subtle bodies. Otherwise, when the organ regenerates itself, it's just going to regenerate itself to the old pattern. So you can't expect somebody's body to regenerate itself because it will just replicate its etheric body if the stuff is held in the etheric body. And you're back down to your stress and your levels of tension. You're back down to all the other emotional, mental, spiritual stuff that the etheric body will actually hold. So although it's tempting to think that you can deal with it on a non-holistic manner, you get actually, this is when you realise that you cannot work just on a physical level. You can't work on an elastopath level. You know, and this is the problem that we have these days within orthodox systems, is they'll work just on an elastopath level, see the symptom, fix the symptom, but not realising actually how the body's functioning on all those levels. Then of course we have pancreas, and of course this is one of the sort of socially important, media important, government important issues at the moment, of course, because the levels of diabetes are going through the ceiling. And the pancreas, basically, the enzymes it releases helps us deal with sugar and various other bits and pieces as far as digestion is concerned. And this is why I cannot separate talking with the pancreas from the chakras and the colours, because it's a yellow problem, it's a solar plexus. You know, it's a so serious solar plexus chakra stuff, this. And it's ironic because I think you can get it again now, but there was one supplement they banned. And in fact they went for a little while that they even banned the thing that carried the supplement. You remember years ago eggs were off the menu?
No, yeah.
Yeah, the Edwina curry and the... Yeah. Now, egg yolks contain chromium. Bioavailable, in other words, the body uses chromium just fine. And one thing that you find that people who've got pancreases that don't work very well is that they don't have enough chromium in the system. The chromium is a yellow.
Yeah, yellow pigment.
It's a yellow pigment. It's telling you what it does. It comes in egg yolks. It's telling you what it does. You know? And there's one thing that you could find, particularly with people with late onset diabetes, you know, the stuff that comes because their body's been overused basically and has keeled over and decided, I've had enough, is that, you know, foods rich in chromium can do a lot to get things balanced back again. Not necessarily going to work quite the same way for childhood, you know, diabetes, when people are actually, there's an inherited difficulty. But it's one of the socially flagged up things these days. And of course there's been a lot of hoo-ha about it because, you know, you could buy diabetic jam and it had more sugar in it than than jam if you just ordinary jam.
Made it at home.
Yeah.
Mad.
Oh, there's been a whole thing about, it gets onto the same level as low-fat stuff. It's like, once you get onto that, you're just thinking the amount of media rubbish about that sort of stuff these days. And of course, what it does is it keeps people away from eating real food. Very clever, actually. If you get them eating real food, you're actually going to get healthy people. Okay. So we'll come back to that area of digestion a little bit later because it's very chemistry heavy. So the food, in its slurpy, extra slurpy state now, because you've now got you had the chine from the stomach, and now it's had all the gubbins from the gallbladder, liver via gallbladder and the pancreas added into it. It actually enters into the small intestine. Okay. The small intestine's actually got a couple of parts. It's duodenum, ileum and jejunum, but we don't necessarily need to know that from a digestion point of view. But what happens in the small intestine, you remember, what's the key thing about the small intestine?
Oh God, it's dreadful. And
you can't remember?
It's very long.
It's very, 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 very long. Scarily long.
It's not small.
No, it's like something like 22... 22.
Doesn't it go around a tennis court?
Something like that, yeah.
Oh,
God.
Yeah,
but it is. It's that. Yeah. It's seriously long. It's something like the whole thing is about 30 foot. Most of it is the small intestine. But it's got little fingers, or villi, they're called. Yeah, and they actually, as the food passes through it, they're the ones that actually absorb the nutrients and take it into the bloodstream.
How do you spell them, Sue?
Villi. V-I-L-L-I. Oh. I think I don't know whether a singular is called a villum. I don't know. I've only ever seen it in the plural.
I saw a beautiful.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no.
I saw a beautiful electro-scanning microscope picture of them once.
Yeah.
That made them look like a little garden.
I'm just going to say that like you see coral. Coral.
Yes.
It's very much the same thing, and in fact, coral work the same sort of way. They actually pull the little beans and the plankton and other things from the sea. They actually work in a very, very similar way.
So these villi are on the outside of the small intestine?
Well, no, the inside.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
not on the outside.
You've got a tube. It's
There won't be much good on the
Yeah.
outside.
So it could be interesting on that side.
You'll get much nutrient.
Yeah. So yes,
You can tell I haven't finished my A&P course.
Yeah, that's all right. The trouble is, things like the digestion is such a specialist, tiny section of A&P.
Yeah.
That even when you've done it, you still have to sort of redo it again when you do it.
So when people have their stomach stapled, in cups, they've only got a little tiny pouch, they say something about then they attach it to the small intestine. So do they miss out all the bile and all that? Or where do they do it from?
I really don't know what they get up to I think usually when the stomach's stapled, they may have to stabilise it because if it's very small, they may have to stabilise it. But I don't know.
Because I know they have supplements, don't they?
Well, they have to.
Because their body can't absorb stuff.
Well, it's the thing is, you see, if food's not going to stay in the stomach long enough for it to get seriously chimed up, by the time that it gets into the small intestine, it's not going to be in a fit state for the body to absorb it. And here you have the problem, and this is probably one of the biggest problems that you come across. When people talk about the dreaded leaky gut, what they're basically saying is that stuff is being absorbed that shouldn't be, or stuff is passing through the wall of the small intestine into the bloodstream that shouldn't be there. In other words, something, and this is why I have issue with them, and that would tell me is that something has gone wrong further up the system.
Yes.
Because the food's not been in a proper state, and therefore the body doesn't know what to do with it. So it's no good trying to think, we just fix the leaky gut, because that's actually not the problem. The problem is something's happened further up. And this is a general thing that happens when you're looking at digestion. is when you have a physical symptom at X level, you need to look further back up the system to see what's gone wrong. Because that's just the symptom, it's not the cause. And so it's no good just trying to fix the symptom. Well, it's like, like we're saying, like putting a stomach band on or something like that is not going to actually fix the thing. Because the actual cause is something further back. And in the case of people...
I read a really fascinating New Scientist article about stomach stapling operations recently, and they were saying that it's more likely to be an addiction problem that we're dealing with. But they're seeing all sorts of unusual results that they hadn't banked on, including people's lives just changing hugely because their consciousness changes, because the chemistry and the hormonal stuff is working completely differently.
Yeah.
So people are getting like flashes of insight and stuff like that they're attributing to different chemistry.
Well, it's like the stuff with the heart transplants, isn't it? They used to think that that was just like literally just the organ.
Well, and
now they realise, of course, you see that the heart does give off hormones. It's it does give off neurotransmitters, and they control people's artistry. I mean, you look back at the old idea about what the chakras did. You go back to the Vedic thing. Poetry comes from the heart. Music comes from the heart. What they found with heart transplants, you put in somebody else, and if the donor was a musician, then the recipient ends up being a musician. Wow.
There's a lot of they finding.
And it's this sort of stuff. It's like you say, you cannot think of it just as a machine. There's much more going on than just that. Okay, so having gone through the yards of the small intestine, it comes across another valve. At the end of the small intestine and at the beginning of the large intestine, we've got something called the ileocaecal valve. Okay.
Challenging on the spelling.
Oh, it is. Unless you're going to go American, in which case dead easy. Okay, and I think what we'll do now, we'll leave that, have a cuppa, leave the ileocaecal valve.
And I can try and remember. I've recognised what it is, but I can't
remember what it does.
This is great revision for me. I'm going to get on with my A&P. It's inspired me.
Yeah. I'd tell you something though, it does make you realise, particularly the digestion system, I think it comes through the whole body, is just how absolutely incredible.
Yeah, we're amazing.
We are. Just how absolutely astonishing we actually are.
We're still only touching the tip of the
I
iceberg.
have no idea.
I think we know nothing about the brain. I think what's going on in there.
Yeah.
Or not.
Or not, excuse me. Yeah, I mean, it really does. It leaves you gobsmacked.
Yeah.
That's actually what the body does. Okay, so cuppa, biscuits.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.